Leon Galante, born 1887 in Sicily. He was born to Genevieve Ferrari and Michele Galante, and he had two brothers called Michele Jr. and Nunzio. He met his best friend Frank Vinci in Sicily, and they both proceeded to immigrate to Empire Bay in 1908, aged 21. Well, they proceeded to go back to Sicily now and again during 1916 to 1931, committing many crimes like robbery, murder, etc., etc. Until in 1920, they took control of the Southport docks, and this is where they started to get organised and creating the Vinci family. Obviously, Leo acted as the brains, finally falling into the job of these consigliere, whereas Frank was the muscle and was thought more of the leader, so he became the boss. During 1931 to 1933, the Vinci family were at war with the Moretti family, and Leo was a great piece of this war because he is the one that brokered the peace between the two families by having a young Carlo Falcone, who was, I think, a soldato inside the Moretti family, go against Don Moretti and have him killed by planting a bomb underneath the limo and blowing him up, and finally ended the Moretti family and finally creating the Falcone family. From 1933 to 1943, Leo continued to grow his bookmaking operation, which was the biggest in the city for 20 years, until he was charged with bookmaking and fixing fights in 1943, and then he was sentenced to 5 years in Hartman Federal Penitentiary. But because of his connections and his place in the Vinci family, his life was pretty good, seeing as he had his own private suite and he had like all the luxuries, whereas the other prisoners did not because they weren't connected. And this, in 1943, 2 years later, is where Vito Scaletta meets him after he is seeking out his protection, because also Vito is part of the Clemente family, but obviously Leo is part of the Vinci family. And Leo has his own little fighting club within the prison, and Vito fights for Leo in return of protection from anyone else, because then he's under Leo's protection, really. So this is where Vito's and Leo's relationship begin to flower. So this is where the mentor slash father and son thing kind of comes in, because Vito was his best fighter and he had him fighting the other gangs inside the prison, and eventually he just grew on Leo, and Leo had him to kill Brian O'Neill, who would beat up one of his soldiers, who would be Pepe Costa. And he just proves useful to Leo, and because of that he gets to have the same luxuries as him, and he gets moved to Leo's cell and gets him out 4 years early. That leads us to 1951. So Leo gets out in 1947 and doesn't really appear in the story until 1951, when he recommends Vito and Joe to be made into the Falcone family because of his time in prison and seeing that he can keep his mouth shut, and he proves useful for the family. So he's present during the sit down with Frank Vinci, as obviously he's part of the commission, he's part of the he's a very important piece of the Vinci family, sorry. And this takes us onto another chapter, which is chapter 11, I think, A Friend of Ours, where Henry Tomasino is sent by Eddie Scarpa to kill Leo Galante. When Vito goes to save him, he goes up to his house, and Leo tries to escape out of the house. If you're successful, then he goes to the train station, no bother. But if you're not successful, he's spared by Henry anyway. And Leo finally goes to Lost Heaven to hide out, and he's pretty exiled for a couple of months, and then he will return a couple of months later to broker the peace between, once again brokering the peace between the Triads and the Vinci family. And by this he sends Vito to go and kill Falcone up at the observatory, but he doesn't include Joe in the deal. But as we find out in Mafia 3, Joe is alive, so he obviously kept him around. And it's possible that he was inducted into the Vinci family as he becomes Leo's driver. So Vito and Leo had kind of a shaky relationship after the whole Joe spiel, but they remain on friendly terms. But obviously Vito has some secret hatred towards him because obviously he killed his best friend, well, to his knowledge anyway. And they still have contact throughout the years from 1951 to all the way up to 1968. So Vito tells Leo about what's going on with the Marcano family and sends him postcards. And on these postcards, Leo he has a business in Little Italy, which is a tailor shop. He runs his business out of there. So it's possible that they kind of claimed the Clemente's turf after he was taken out in 1951. So Leo obviously knows Sal Marcano, so he sends Vito down to there to work with the Marcano family, but obviously using Vito as a spy just to see what's going on down there. So 1968, Leo, age 81, and he's still alive. 81. And obviously he works with Sal, and he's a very important part of the commission now. Well, I think he was back in the day anyway, but he's more what's the word? He's more like independent rather than being part of the Vinci family. Like, the Vinci family weren't referenced at all with Leo Galante, so I don't know what's going on with them then. And Leo goes down to New Bordeaux and makes a deal with Lincoln, offering the commission 20%, same as Sal's deal, and relatively he's kind of friendly towards Lincoln, and obviously he leaves. So before he does, you obviously see that Joe Borrow's still alive, and we just get to see that Leo is some kind of representative of the commission now, rather than he's Vinci's consigliere, which is quite weird. But obviously he makes the deal. Lincoln, if you decide to rule the city, works closely with Leo and the commission, obviously offering them the 20%. And after that, it's unknown what happens. He obviously dies a couple of years after, though, because he's age 81, and he has the only legacy he has is a family member named Johnny Galante. We don't know if that's his son, nephew, grandson, or whatever, but you obviously know that he is related to Leo Galante somehow. And if you let Cassandra rule the city, Johnny Galante will be mentioned in Maguire's little speech that he has towards the end, and Johnny Galante is actually killed by the Haitians when he's watching a porno in a porno theater. So yeah, Johnny Galante, I don't know what relation he is, but he is related to Leo Galante, of course. But that is his only legacy, and that kind of is the full story of Leo Galante from 1887 to 1968, and it's quite strange. Here are some facts and trivia about Leo right now, and I feel like this one was kind of rushed due to me trying to make another video, which was the Rainbow Six Free one, which I quite like. So on the next videos, I'm definitely going to take more care with them and get more details about the characters. But I did as much as I could for this one. Like and subscribe for some more, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.